Hello and welcome back to Katrip Nirka, where we'll be taking all the great big things to discover around the globe directly to you in your house. And today we will be looking at water, or specifically this document here, which is the Geography Pre-Release for Thursday's paper for AQA Geography Paper 3. And here is my complete comprehensive guide after my good painstaking research through this that can help you pass your exams. The first primary issue we have to look at here is the issue of water supply and demand and the changes it undergoes in the UK currently. Currently, according to the pre-release, and as you would have studied for paper 2, the east and southeast of the UK is in water deficit with some areas to the fens receiving under 800 millimeters of rainfall. However, this is where the most people are, with the capital city of London being in the southeast region. However, up north in the northwest, in Wales and Scotland, where population density is very sparse, there is a huge amount of rainfall. And these places are in water surplus. And the big challenge for the UK is how to manage this water surplus and deficit and bring all that surplus water up from the north down to the south. This is going to become an increasingly large challenge for two reasons. Reason number one being increasing population, with population planned to increase all over the UK, particularly in the southeast, where by 2045 there will be a 50%, according to the pre-release, a 50% increase in population. And overall, there will be an increase of 4 billion litres a day in demand on the already high 16 billion litres that water companies supply to the UK on a daily basis due to this increase in population. This is a particular issue due to several reasons. Already, demand is an issue because of something called effective rainfall, as stated in the source, where during the summer months, the temperatures are higher, and because temperatures are higher, as I'm sure you would have studied in chemistry, there is more evaporation, and so there's less what's called effective rainfall, which is rainwater left after all the evaporation has happened for water companies to use. However, during the summer months is when demand is the highest because it's hot, and so people want to drink lots of water and generally use lots of water for stuff like swimming pools and showers and baths, cold showers, that sort of thing. And this consumes a lot of water, and so there's high demand in these periods. And this whole seasonal issue is made even worse by the fact of climate change, something that shapes almost every single thing in the world these days, as droughts are more likely to increase with temperatures going up, as water demand also goes up, supply is actually scheduled to be going down by 7% by 2045. And this could make the likelihood of a big drought event resulting in water restriction twice as more likely in 2050 than it is now, making the issue of water supply something that has to be dealt with instantly. Another massive issue in the midst of all of this is pollution. Lots of untreated sewage and agricultural slurry gets sent into our rivers, and this is bad. This A, limits the amount of water that we have to drink, considering that a lot of our water comes from surface water sources, and B, is bad for the environment because agricultural slurry can lead to the large growth in algae. This leads to eutrophication, where the oxygen supply is depleted for fishes there who can't live and use oxygen to respire, as well as lots of plastics and other toxins being ingested by small-scale organisms which get eaten up by primary consumers and tertiary and secondary consumers, and this all leads to toxins and disease being spread across the food chain. So ultimately, we want to limit this, and there are some solutions that smart people have come up with to help solve this, as shown in figure 2 in the pre-release. Household water use in England is excessively high, one of the highest in Europe, and this is partially due to people who overly consume water through long showers, more baths, and leaving taps running. Very bad of them, I know. As figure 2 here shows, most of the water used in the UK is used for flushing toilets and personal washing and washing machines, as well as washing up, garden use and drinking, actually being one of the smallest uses of water, only 4%. A 2023 survey suggests that most people thought that they used only 57 litres of water a day, but in fact they used 140. The government have a target to reduce this to 122 by 2038 and 110 by 2050. How do they plan to do this? Well, it all starts off with our houses, where rainwater can be stored up in our roofs through rainwater harvesting and pumped down into an underground water tank that can be used to flush toilets. In our gardens, we can use water buds to help store water, and we can also plant drought-resistant plants that will be able to grow even if conditions get hotter, and that can help solve the issue of food insecurity that might arise as well due to the water shortage. In the bathroom, this can be done by installing more efficient showers, smaller baths to reduce water capacity, efficient taps, and dual flushing toilets with a heavy flush for solid waste and a lighter one for liquid. In the kitchen, this can be done by using more water efficient taps, dishwashers and washing machines, and as well as installing ceramic washers on your tap to prevent leakage and drips. Overall, the government encouraged that people should raise more awareness about the water usage, how important it is to save water, and hence that people should stop doing stuff and leaving their taps running. The government planned to help reduce our water consumption through stuff like managing water supply, as I said before, raising awareness, as well as grey water recycling, which involves recycling the water used in like toilets and showers to be used there again, or maybe even for gardening, as well as generally water recycling systems that treat wastewater and clean them and sterilize them and put them back into our rivers so that they A, don't harm wildlife, and B, can be a source of drinking water for us humans as well. Desalination plants can also be built, as have been built in the Thames, that convert brackish, slightly salty water into clean, potable water that we can drink. However, these are expensive to build, take time to run, and we don't even have a large supply of this stuff. Desalination is generally used in countries like Dubai, where water is less, but the money is very high. Leakage can be reduced, and this is a huge game changer because 3 billion litres of water, around 20% of supply, is leaked on every day. And by reducing this, we reduce pressure on groundwater sources and rivers to help us extract water for us, and also might help us make us ever so closer to meeting that 4 billion in extra demand that we currently need. And lastly, they can build reservoirs, which is what we're going to look on next. Anglian Water proposed the construction of a new reservoir in Lincolnshire near the East Midlands that would help cater to 175,000 new homes being built in the area of Scruddington. The area is pictured here in the AQA Pre-Release Booklet, and you can notice there are a few farms here and thereabouts, but there's not much actually there, and the land is very flat in almost like a slopey area, and the people building it promised to build it with gentle slopes and be mindful of the visual landscape and not have ugly jutting out embankments. They have carefully analysed the geology of the place to ensure it has permeable rock such as clay that doesn't allow a small lag time and thus flash floods, and they have built an over drainage basin to ensure that flooding doesn't occur, as water can just be drained into that. In fact, Anglian Water have proposed the construction of the reservoir because they believe that even with schemes such as grey water recycling and raising awareness, it simply is not enough, and we need to have a direct excess increase in water supply if we want to meet the increase in demand. And Lincolnshire is a perfect place for this because there's not a lot of stuff there, so building a reservoir there won't come into too many people's ways. In fact, they believe that it will be good for the local economy. They've carefully surveyed the area, the geology is all good, the area is perfect for construction, and they consulted local councils, locals, and the Environment Agency. The scheme will involve water transfer from the reservoir, with water when the rivers Witham and Trent are at high discharge being taken from the streams and pumped into reservoirs. And then during summertime, when it's hot and people want lots of water, but there isn't the supply, this excess water can be pumped all across the country to places like London, where water really isn't much. And the project is large scale. 55 million cubic meters of water will be held in the reservoir, and will supply up to 166 million litres of water per day. Nowhere near the 4 billion chat we had before, but it's only for an area. It will supply water to 500,000 homes and bring $2.6 billion of direct and indirect investment to the area. Investment to the area you're talking about? Yes, investment. That's because the reservoir shown here will bring numerous opportunities for leisure, such as walking, cycling, fishing, sailing, and this has the social benefit. The key thing here, you must talk about benefits in social, economic, environmental. Social benefit of providing an area of leisure for locals, the economic benefit of encouraging investment in the area and tourism, which will generate tourist money for local businesses, and the environmental impact of being a conservation area for wildlife, making a safe breeding ground for birds and a place for migrating birds to have a stopover. And of course, there's the main massive advantage of all the water that it will supply for the area. But some people still aren't happy. Thousands signed petition against the building of new reservoir. Over 2,000 local people have wanted to shut down this reservoir. But why would you possibly want to shut down a reservoir that's going to provide water for thousands of homes? The answer is simple. First off, there is the social reason of some locals being unhappy that this water is going to London and not to them, who are locals. The second reason is that another social reason is the fact that houses will have to be destroyed and people will be forced to move out to make space for the reservoir. Local roads will also be congested, especially if you're traveling from like Scruddington to Heldringham or Swatton. You'll have to take the long way around, and this will increase pollution and environmental effect, as well as being a general annoyance for locals. And perhaps the biggest economic reason for this is businesses. Well, farmers, to be specific. The flooding of their lands is bad for their mental health, social reason, there, hidden in between the economic reason, and will mean that they can't earn money from their farming and they can't shift elsewhere, which they see as a bit hypocritical when the government is encouraging people to buy locally for environmental reasons. And simply put, we will be able to compensate these farmers, but their farmland will have to be lost. These people are saying that on an economic standpoint, this is actually not a good idea, because we can do stuff like grey water recycling, managing water supply that also helps bring in this extra water whilst not having to destroy people's livelihoods. The water companies, however, would be on the side of building the reservoir because it generates them an economic profit. And they would argue that even still after doing all those things, it simply is not enough and we have to have a reservoir. There's also environmental concerns of habitats being destroyed on land for animals, such as hedgehogs, as they have to dig up the reservoir, and also issues with the reservoir like removing sediment that contains the nutrients from the area. So, should we build a reservoir? Of course we should build the reservoir. I mean, local investment for businesses, leisure areas, and we have to feed the issue of water supply. 4 billion waters in extra demand. How many people in the east of England, where the population is rising up by 50%, will get supply of this water? That's good for the locals, good for nationals, makes money for the water company. Even the Environment Agency support it, and they've consulted local councils after all. Absolutely preposterous. 3 billion litres of water can be saved by just fixing the leakages in the taps. And I mean the social cost for all those farmers, the economic cost for all those local businesses, people having to move out of their houses. And this water, it's just going to be wasted. It doesn't treat people the lesson that in order to reduce the permanent issue of water demand and water supply being unbalanced, we have to reduce consumption. This reservoir should definitely not be allowed to go ahead. The choice is yours to be in favour of the reservoir or against it. But you have to evaluate it in your 9 marker. It's probably going to be, do you build the reservoir or not? Based on social, economic and environmental concerns, ensure you refer carefully and deeply to the source. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped you, and stay tuned for the next Catch Up in America video.